Disinformation has always been a problem with the media, but in an era of digital world, disinformation has become one of the main challenges of the society. Today we will talk about disinformation and fake news and what problems it creates in different spheres of our life. Due to the speed and scale of information dissemination, detection and debunking of fake news is important tasks for any country. This creates problems also for technology companies whose social networks contribute to the spread of false claims. Due to unreal stories that is spreading online, the trust on media is shaking. As time passes, the number of online frauds increases and artificial intelligence is becoming a big challenge. This is Euronews Georgia, and today we will see different perspectives of this problem from Bulgaria, Romania, Albania, France, Serbia and Georgia. So we will now hear a story from 6 countries. First is Bulgaria. According to a story presented by our colleagues in Bulgarian social media, there was false claims about mobilization that is going to start in country. Their pro-Russian groups are using perception of historical connections, and it makes Bulgaria vulnerable for manipulation.
In recent weeks, again, false and misleading claims that mobilization is underway in Bulgaria have started circulating online. Usually, such claims are accompanied by photos of call-up orders. Minchu Modenov received his summon a month ago. In 2004, he retired from the then compulsory military service. Nowadays, he is a construction worker.
I have received an alien note. I haven't slept in peace for a week. I think about the worst-case scenario, that I will be deployed somewhere, that any moment they will come with jeeps and take me to Ukraine or somewhere else. I don't know. I have no idea.
The Ministry of Defense refuted the claims of an ongoing mobilization.
The insinuation that sending such notices can lead to mobilization is a lie. Since we, as an institution, were caught off guard that we have to inform the people regularly, our enemies have easily exploited this information vacuum and turned it into a sensation to their advantage. Probably everyone can guess who benefits from such a sensation.
Кого ползва тази сензация? Сигурно всички могат да си отговорят, но...
Вие бихте ли казали?
Бих казал...
I would Russia. First and foremost, Russia.
Bulgaria is only one of the countries in Eastern Europe where such disinformation campaigns have been observed.
We have examples of both Bulgarian citizens being allegedly mobilized on Bulgarian territory, as well as Bulgarians living in Ukraine, who have been mobilized voluntarily to fight for the Russian forces. The latter is a narrative that Russia is still exploiting. Moreover, this narrative is also spread through pro-Russian sources in Bulgaria. Such campaigns are reported in the UK, but also in Eastern Europe. In particular, we can mention Poland and Slovakia.
According to a study conducted by several Balkan NGOs, Bulgaria is the most vulnerable to Russian propaganda in the EU. The main reason is the perception of historical connection with Russia.
Journalist from Bulgaria, Irina Ivanova, is joining us. Irina, you mentioned historical connection. How does propaganda work in this regard?
Yeah.
Hello.
In this story, you saw how everything began from a true story, a true call-up order. But despite this fact, sometimes even something that is true is being exploited for the purpose of disinformation and propaganda. The war in Ukraine, particularly in Bulgaria, demonstrated the power of fake news, the power of disinformation. Here in Bulgaria, since the beginning of the war, there is a rise in fake news and disinformation, and this is confirmed, as you saw, by multiple studies. Even one of the closest advisors of the Bulgarian Minister of Defense said that, quote, there's an explosion of fake news. And the problem is that Bulgaria is one of the most vulnerable countries among other in EU and NATO to propaganda and fake news. And even some of our politicians here in our country are using the pro-Kremlin talking points. And I think that the only solution, one of the solutions, is media literacy and information campaigns.
Thank you, Irina. Bulgarian colleague talked about the influence of Russia and spread of disinformation. This factor is very important for Georgia as well. In addition to direct influence, the Russian factor is often manifested in attempts to announce anti-Western sentiments. Anti-Western propaganda is getting more and more intense, along with the fact that Georgia and Georgian people are so persistently moving towards the West. Messages that Europe will not bring anything good to Georgia are actually clearly expressed pro-Russian propaganda.
In the wake of Russia's actions in Ukraine, Georgia is experiencing a surge in anti-Western propaganda. Pro-Russian groups on social media are actively spreading information, portraying the European Union as a threat to the country.
On
Facebook, the so-called troll factory is active. A few months ago, Meta deleted such networks, fake accounts, pages and groups spreading anti-Western messages to the Georgian audience. This is an old pro-Russian method, claiming that the West wants to destabilize Georgia.
Disinformation tactics in Georgia have evolved. Once openly tied to Russian organizations, these accounts now operate discreetly, remaining anonymous on social networks. They avoid registering as political pages but still fund content against the European Union. An illustrative instance involves using artificial intelligence to visualize a hypothetical scenario, a bleak future for Georgia in the EU, sharing alarming images of a burnt church, a city in ruins, and the imagery of LGBTQ pride.
These posts were presented as memes, a combination of images and text meant to influence society in a seemingly entertaining way. They warned that joining the EU would lead to the loss of traditions and the organization of an LGBTQ pride event in Tbilisi. Additionally, they created a petition to remove the provision on European integration from Georgia's constitution. Some reports even published fake anti-Western articles, falsely attributing them to the Western media outlets.
The European Commission recommended granting Georgia EU membership candidate status on November 8 if it takes steps in 9 areas. Among them is combating disinformation and foreign information manipulations concerning the European Union and its values. Experts propose various strategies to tackle misinformation, including implementing relevant education in schools and universities and fostering collaboration among institutions and communities.
Of course, fake news spreads in Georgia in many ways, especially at a time when the world is shaken by wars. At such time, public interest is drawn to these events and everyone wants to know what is happening in Ukraine or Israel. So now my colleague Mariam Kukhilava is joining us. Mariam, please tell us more in what ways this is impacting whole world and Georgia itself.
Yes, after the war started in Ukraine, a significant portion of the Ukrainian population sought refuge worldwide, and the surge of displacement became a battleground for disinformation, and the campaign weaponized the refugees to create discord and tension globally. And the refugees found themselves not only displaced, but also the target of disinformation. And in Georgia, particularly, the narrative focused on Ukrainian people, falsely alleging that they would compete for jobs and strain local employment opportunities. And in addition, the blame was falsely placed on them for the escalating of living costs in Georgia. What is more important, the social media exacerbated this by hinting at European Union countries' involvement into conflict, potentially dragging other countries into, including Georgia, into the war. But not only the disinformation spread about the war in Ukraine, but also the war in Israel as well. And the misinformation was spread by using video games, footages from video games, and utilizing artificial intelligence to create false information and circulate them on social media. What is more important, the fake articles were created to make them seem as they were written by the Western medias to spread anti-Western disinformation in Georgia.
Thank you, Mariam. Very interesting report. The most important thing for any media outlet is to gain a trust. For this, the activity of professional journalists who are guided by journalism standard is very important. And on the internet, it often happens that these professionals are replaced by certain voices whose aim is to mislead the public. This, of course, discredits the media.
The spread of fake news in Albania has become a serious concern in recent years. Several reports from the European Commission and international institutions monitoring the media landscape highlight the growing risk of fake news and their impact. According to Roden Hoxha, the director of the Albanian Center for Quality Journalism, the consequences of fake news should be seen in two main directions.
The impact of fake news on the public is in several directions. Firstly, the public not only believes this often panic-inducing news, as we have seen in cases during natural disasters in recent years, but on the other hand, there is also the problem that the impact is often negative towards the reputation of journalists. Not just the journalist who has produced fake news, but journalists as a whole. This leads to a loss of public's trust in journalists.
He emphasizes that fake news jeopardizes the social contract that has been built between the media and the public.
The impact of reputation loss is one of the main effects that comes from fake news in the media. This greatly affects the media itself. When the public does not trust the media, the entire relationship, the social media contract that exists between the public and the media, where one is a consumer of information and the other is a supplier of accurate information, collapses.
According to Hoxha, there are many cases where fake news is used by different individuals for specific purposes.
Often third parties with malicious intent intervene, providing a bad analysis on the information according to their editorial line on their own goals and interests, presenting it to the public in a distorted way. The lack of reputable journalists to filter this information properly and present it to the public creates a vacuum that is filled by third parties, and the public accepts it as valid.
A report from the Foreign Affairs Committee of the European Parliament emphasizes that in Albania, media efforts to increase audience and revenue prevail through sensational reporting, often with little connection to the truth of the published information.
And now journalist from Euronews Albania, Franco Egro, is joining us. Hello, Franco. Please tell us more about so-called third parties and groups that engage in public discourse, and how exactly does this affect the public's perception of information?
To answer your question directly, Annette, the third parties are business, politics and foreign entities that seek to mislead people in order to forward their financial, political and personal agendas. I would like to underline the fact that Albania's internet media sector is vibrant, but it faces serious challenges in making a profit. As a result, it is looking for ways to make money, such as acting as mouthpieces for their owners, as well as for clients and customers. Now, most disinformation in Albania originates and serves internal purposes. It is manifested in two ways. The most common are attempts by the media, frequently without any regard for accuracy, to use sensationalist reporting to increase traffic and consequently their earnings. Second, political motivations are behind the creation and dissemination of fake news. Politicians and political parties from all over the spectrum are accused of exploiting them to increase their public visibility and prominence. It is worrying indeed, Annette, that online data studies reveal that even high-caliber print, web and TV sources serve as disinformation distribution vectors. Again, money is the name of the game. Fake news from foreign sources, Annette, make up a tiny portion of the misinformation. There is proof of Russian actors trying to weaken Albania's adherence to Euro-Atlantic principles. Fact-checkers as well have also identified reports pertaining to Chinese attempts to slant coverage of COVID-19. But these attempts are reduced to ashes, as Albanians are overwhelmingly pro-EU and pro-NATO. And finally, Annette, the journalist community in this country supports media self-regulation as a means of achieving higher professional standards and raising the bar for reporting in the public interest and defense of the truth, something that Euronews Albania, as a top broadcaster, regularly demonstrates it on a regular and daily basis, Annette.
Thank you so much, Franco, for your very interesting report. And now our colleague from France will join us. We will continue to talk about the trust and public attitude towards the media. There is another new factor here, artificial intelligence. And of course, along with the many benefits that AI has brought nowadays, it has also comes with a lot of risk factors. It is really interesting to hear a competent opinion on this topic. And now our colleague Ocean Debust join us from Lyon. Ocean, please, what is the role of artificial intelligence on society in general and on the work of journalists in particular? Should journalists refuse to use it?
Artificial intelligence really represents a double-edged sword, especially for young journalists, and I count myself among them, obviously. It's something I experiment with and see every day. On one hand, it is extremely useful for some time-consuming tasks, like transcribing interviews, but on the other hand, it is also an unprecedented risk of massive disinformation. First of all, the tools themselves, like ChatGPT or Bard, can make mistakes. That's already been proven. It's a phenomenon called hallucination or confabulation. And because an AI doesn't have a conscience or a sense of responsibility, the tone for a piece of fake news will be very affirmative. No difference will be made between what's false and what's true. And that's something young journalists should be aware of. Finding the balance on how to use these new tools while being careful in keeping our reliability will be one of the main challenges in the years to come. The second risk is the people who are using AI to create misinformation on purpose. It can mean generating fake pictures, it can mean doctoring videos in an extremely realistic way. You may have heard about deepfakes, that's what it is.
Ocean, please, can you share your experience with us? What are the ways to fight misinformation?
One of the issues is how quickly this kind of content spreads, for example, on social media, and how easy it is to make a mistake on this content. For example, in May 2023, the Irish Times had to apologize after publishing an AI-generated opinion article that wasn't spotted in time. This shows how easy it is to lose your audience's trust in the blink of an eye, and how we should be careful and ensure that we are trustworthy.
Thank you for your time, Ocean. And now, story from Romania. Fake news not only misrepresents reality, it turns out that it can also cause financial problems. A very interesting story was provided by our Romanian colleagues. Let's see the story, which will show us the problem of spreading fake news from a completely different perspective.
Andrei sent packages to 16 influencers containing camembert cheese worth 7 lei, about 1.40 euros, a bottle of wine and a personalized letter. 8 of them agreed to promote the product online without asking any questions about the origins of the fake brand.
E un moment în care vedem că acești oameni...
The moment when we see that these people don't do their checkups, which everyone should do when promoting anything, when communicating anything. Just as a TV station should check 3 times before broadcasting any news, so an influencer should check 3 times at least before promoting anything or communicating anything online, because in the end they have a huge number of followers.
Un număr imens de urmăritori.
There would have been plenty of clues for them to find that they were faced with a hoax. For example, the package comes from the Royal Court of Romania, an institution that does not exist, and the noble cheese was made at the Cloister Monastery, which also does not exist.
Consider și că partea asta e cumva e vestul sălbatic, pentru că
I also think that this area is somehow like the Wild West because we don't have any very certain legislative regulation. There have been many cases since the Plush Biocosmetics case in 2020, and now we are extensively experiencing the case of bookmakers and slot machines and their online promotion.
cazul caselor de pariuri, păcănelelor și promovarea lor în online.
Andrei Petrov said that that was a funny but sad moment, while the communication specialist Marian Hurducaș explained that it was yet another proof that many influencers did not think they had any responsibility to their audience.
Niciun om de marketing și de publicitate.
No marketeer or advertiser would give such a name to a product. It's wrong in every way, and an influencer who has been working in this industry for years should have noticed this detail.
Ar fi trebuit să vadă acest detaliu.
The influencer's posts promoting the product vanished from the social media shortly after Andrei Petrov made the experiment public.
And now our colleague Radu Hanganut from Romania joining us. We saw a very interesting experiment about influence on society. What was the reaction to this story after the truth was revealed, and what other problems does society face in this regard?
Annette, there were indeed some reaction, as we have seen also in social media. Some people took it to social media to comment, and they said that this is a sad, also a funny moment for our social media and for our society. However, there hasn't been much progress in this regard, much of a response in this problem, largely because there are no clear regulations regarding what influencers can promote and what should they do in order to make sure that their online communities know what they are buying at the end. So there were there's no follow-up from a lawsuit standpoint of view. Actually, implementing laws to make influencers accountable is basically a non-existent topic at this point in Romania, even though there are some countries in the European Union, such as Spain. There in Spain, there is a regulation that levy some fines for influencers that are making some content regarding, for example, financial products that if they don't have expertise in this domain, they could be fined by the authorities from Spain. Also, after the royal cheese story that you just saw, we talked at the Cube at Euronews Romania with multiple experts, and they all had the same opinion, basically. They said that Romania and lots of other countries in the European Union need regulations because influencers need to be held accountable for all the things that they are promoting, and basically their online community at some point they could buy. But this appears to be kind of a waiting game in our society, which is obviously very problematic because 2024 is a year with a super electoral year in Romania. We have 4 different elections in our country, and this means that there are lots to lose in the fake news area.
Thank you, Radu, for your time. And now we can hear a story from Serbia. While the spread of fake news has become a global problem, disinformation is not a new phenomenon. Throughout history, false information and manipulation have had devastating consequences for both individuals and the country as a whole. What is the difference in terms of impact of fake news in the past and today? The story of Euronews Serbia tells us about this.
If we know that fake news about the imminent Egyptian rebellion pushed the Roman Empire into decades of civil war, which claims thousands of lives, including famously those of Mark Antony and Queen Cleopatra. Also, that an editor of newspapers in England was hanged in the 18th century for inventing a story about the king's life-threatening illness, and that the founder of the most prestigious journalistic award in the United States, Joseph Pulitzer, was once known as the inventor of the yellow press, which presented gossip as the events that had really happened. Can we then accept the frequently repeated notion that we live in the post-truth era?
I would rather say that we live in an era of multiple truths. People often say that there is just one truth, but I think we should learn how to live in an era where truths are numerous and they are in the eye of the beholder. In order to be able to do so, we must acquire a completely new level of media literacy.
Today, just like in ancient Rome, fake news can have devastating consequences. In recent history, in 2004, the fake story about the drowning of Albanian children in Kosovo who were allegedly driven into the river by ethnic Serbs led to massive ethnic violence which claimed dozens of lives and saw hundreds of Serbian homes and churches destroyed. In Germany in 2017, the newspapers apologized for the stories they carried about sexual assault by immigrants on a German woman after the police found that the incident had never happened. But by then, riots shook German cities. People were injured and arrested. Social networks did not apologize.
In the past, fake news, like all other news, were limited in the number of sources and the means of distribution. Today, the sources are endless and the distribution is very wide, so anyone can create fake news and put them on a platform in order to manipulate the masses, especially those who want to accept the truth. So there's transition from a monopolized creation of fake news and fake news to anarchistic one.
The fake news are usually spread for profit, propaganda, or political influence. Traditional media have resorted to introducing debunking content as part of their daily activities.
So now Bojan Brikic from Euronews Serbia will join us. Please tell us more how fake news was used in the past, what is happening now, and what is the best ways for society to manage waves of information that is coming every day from online and traditional media.
Only yesterday, a big international conference was finished here in this Sava Congress Center in Belgrade, where Euronews Serbia is situated, and it tackled fake news as one of the topics. Now, the international and domestic experts who spoke about it concluded that the main change in the environment of news and fake news is the technology. Everything's the same. The motivation is the same: political influence, profit, or propaganda. But the technology is what changes. We mentioned in this package that we saw ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, when Emperor Octavian was spreading fake news about Mark Antony and Cleopatra, he did it by putting slogans on coins, on money. And those coins took years to distribute across the Roman Empire. And it was only after the mid-15th century and the invention of the Gutenberg's press that the news and the fake news became more viral. And then the appearance of the print media, the first big instance of fake news, 1835, the New York Sun publishes that life was found on the moon with the pictures of winged creatures that are flying around the moon, and so on and so on. And since then, fake news have been abandoned, and they only depended on the means, on the carriers, on the platforms. And those platforms are now technologically more advanced. They are widespread. They can put many news to wide audience, and fake news as well. So what the conclusion of the conference was that now what changed was technology, and the technology brought about other changes, like who is the media. Everyone is the media right now. Everyone can put news and come to other people to tell them something. Now, the way to combat this, to counter this situation, is to make people more media literate. And media literacy was the term that was mentioned many times, not just in this conference, but for instance in Serbian primary schools, a new subject was introduced last year, which is media literacy, because everyone believes that we should explain all these things to the people, especially the young people, that they must distinguish between trustworthy sources of information and those who are not.
Disinformation is a global challenge for all the countries of the world. Its influence is already damaging the ties among people between countries. It's breaking the trust and perception of reality. Today we try to see from perspectives of different countries what problems are created by ever-increasing disinformation and what are the ways to fight it. This is Euronews Georgia. Thank you for watching.